What's up, guys? All right, so I had originally started trying to do this live, and but my connection is so bad that I lost it. So sorry if any of you guys are trying to jump on the live session. I'm just going to record what I was going to say. I was going to answer questions as well. I'll try to do this again next Sunday for another live. Maybe I can figure out a better place to do it so I won't lose connection. So anyway, what I want to talk about today, though, is the story of Judith. Now, if you get your Bible open and you look for the book of Judith, you may or may not be able to find it. It's not in every Bible. So it's in the Catholic Bible, it's in the the Eastern Orthodox Bible, and there may be some other Christians who use those Bibles that have that book in it. But I'm not going to talk about why it was taken out or any of that right now. I just want to tell you about a story that's in it. There is, it deals with King Nebuchadnezzar, who was around, I don't know, somewhere around 600 BC. He's taken over a lot of the area. You hear about the Babylonian captivity and things like that. So that's Nebuchadnezzar. He's got this commander or general named Holofernes or something like that, Holofernes. And he's coming into this area, this town, Bethulia, and no one seems to be able to stop him, right? And there's this widow in the town, Judith, and she was a believer in God, and she felt like these people needed to be stopped, okay? One thing you have to understand is that Nebuchadnezzar wanted everybody to worship him. And so she decides to take it upon herself to do something about it. And so she puts on a bunch of makeup, jewelry, and it makes a point to say that I think she was very beautiful. And she leaves her village and goes out, and she gets captured by this general's army. And they bring her to the general. She tells him that she has a message, that she has a way to for him to come in and capture the town without anybody dying, okay? So he likes that idea. He also gets to know her. He really likes her. And then one night he throws a banquet, and it says he gets drunk. He drinks more wine than he's ever drank before, or ever will again, if you get my drift. So she, when he's asleep, passes out drunk. She takes a sword, his sword, and she cuts off his head. So, sorry, I should have given you a warning. This is very brutal. She cuts off his head. She puts it in a sack. And her her maid, her servant, or whatever, they leave with that head. And everybody thought she was going to say her prayers, which she did every night. And so they just go on out and they leave. They leave the army camp and they go back to her village. And basically they've won, because this makes the army just kind of folds in on itself, right? They leave the town alone, and it's safe. This village is safe because of this lady, her faith and her courage to do what's right. And so it's a powerful story. One of the reasons I like it so much, though, is because it touches on something ancient, an ancient philosophy. Now, to understand this also, you have to understand that they did a song about this lady, Judith, and they call her blessed. And they say, blessed are you among women, right? Now, we hear that blessed are you again in the New Testament. In Luke chapter 1, in reference to Mary, she's told over and over again that she's blessed among women. Now, if we go back to Genesis chapter 3, you'll see Adam and Eve in the garden. You'll see the fall, and God is talking to them. And he's talking to the serpent, which we know as Satan, and he's talking to the woman. And I'm going to read verse 15. He says, he's talking to the serpent first. I will put enmities between thee and the woman, and thy seed and her seed. She shall crush thy head, and thou shalt lie in wait for her heel. Now, this passage is called the Protoevangelium, which is just a fancy term for first gospel. And it's said to be the first, the prophecy of Jesus. And that the seed of the woman, because women don't typically have seed, would be Jesus. And he would crush the serpent's heel. So because of Jesus, the serpent is crushed. Satan is defeated. Okay? And so why this story of the Old Testament, the Judith, of her cutting this general's head off, is because there's also another story in the book of Judges, similar, where this leader of the army that's attacking the Hebrew people, they're defeated, but he escapes, and he goes off and he finds this Hebrew lady, Jael, and she lets him come into his tent, and she gives him some milk. He goes to sleep. She takes a tent peg and a hammer, and she drives it through his temple and kills him. And so the reason these brutal stories, why I'm telling you this, is because that story in Genesis is a story about this enemy of God's people and how God will send a redeemer to rescue his people and defeat the enemy, okay? And so here we have these women, these stories of these women who cut the heads off or drive a nail through the heads. In other words, they crush the heads of the enemy of God's people. And this is just a shadow of what's to come, right? Because we know that in Luke what happens, right? Well, Jesus is born. The king is born who will put a final death blow to the enemy of God's people. And that, guys, is the Protoevangelium, the first gospel. And maybe you believe it, and maybe you don't, but at least now you've heard it. And all right, so like I said, I was going to do a live version, and I was going to answer questions if you had these kind of questions, which I'm no expert to answer these questions. And just remember, guys, we talked about this in Sunday school today. So in our class, we talk a lot about theology, philosophy, psychology, and just really kind of interesting. Sometimes we'll talk about physics, and just different things that make you, really stretch your brain, right? But none of that really matters, guys. I mean, what matters is that you love God, you seek God, and you just try to continue to do better with your lives. And that's like that pursuing righteousness, which we all fail at, right? But we can still continue to try to get rid of the evil in our life and to seek out the good and to seek God above all things. That's simple. And that's all that you really have to know. I mean, all this other is just interesting, at least to me. But you don't have to know all the deep theology or whatever. And I probably got most of the stories wrong in the first place. But anyway, so that was the Protoevangelium. Maybe next time, maybe I'll try to do another live version. Maybe I can answer some addiction questions, which is probably why you're watching anyway. But all right, guys, thanks. Go drink some coffee, fight nihilism, reject apathy, love your neighbor. Peace.